Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's leadership webinar on Wellbeing Now. My name is Rosie King, and I am the Training Director at Corporate Training Options. Our webinar today is being presented by our Wellbeing Expert Rob Hills, and he's going to cover a number of topics for us, including the importance of gauging your own wellbeing, why getting outside is so vital for wellbeing, and also mindfulness techniques that we can start using today to improve your wellbeing. So thank you for joining us, and I'm going to hand over to Rob Hills. Thank you, Rob.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rosie. Thanks for that introduction, and welcome everyone to the webinar Wellbeing Now. As was introduced, my name is Rob Hills, and I'm really excited to be here with you today. I'm just going to share my screen with you now so you can see my slides. So just bear with me for 2 seconds. Okay, hopefully you can see my perfect. That's great. Thank you very much. Just going to move this over here. Okay, so just a bit about my background. I'm a wellbeing and leadership trainer, author, speaker, facilitator. My experience comes from 23 years in both the Royal Australian Air Force and the Australian Federal Police. My last position with the Australian Federal Police, which I spent 13 years with, was as the team leader of leadership training. So I looked after all the leadership training for the Australian Federal Police. When Rosie asked me to do this webinar, I struggled a bit to come up with a title. And I was thinking something like wellbeing post-COVID, but I can't say definitively that we're actually out of COVID just yet, or that there won't be a second wave. There is a popular Chinese proverb that says, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And I don't think we can wait any longer to start putting our mental health and wellbeing as our top priority. And I know from talking about this to a lot of people at the moment, I know a lot of people are struggling with their mental health. And it's because of these unprecedented times. We're all going through different pressures, working from home, kids from home, and just the bombardment of the social media and media around what's happening with the coronavirus. So to start with today, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and pop in the chat box where you think you might be right now with regards to your mental health and well-being, if this was a visual representation of your current mental health state. So A, you're happy and bounce back easily from minor setbacks. B, you're going okay, you have some concerns about life, but you're hanging in there. C, you're starting to feel worried, anxious, or you may be in the early stages of recovering from the setback. Or D, things aren't going so well. So let's just have a look in the chat box. So we've got some A's, some B's, maybe a D in there as well. Okay, and that's all okay. This is just your own sort of checking in with yourself to say, Blake was kidding, it's an easy A. Beautiful, thanks Blake. The trick with wellbeing is to notice when your charge is starting to run low. And often people are just so busy keeping up with day-to-day lives, they don't realize that they're actually sliding down the scale. And if we're at a D, we've left it too long. And believe me, I know I've actually been at a D and I know what it feels like. And I know it's a long, hard road to get back. So we should be doing something for our well-being all the time. So we don't have to find ourselves at a D. So if you're an A already, that's great, but you still should have some well-being strategies in place. If you're a B, maybe you need those baseline strategies, but then maybe a few more. If you're at a C, this is when you start to think maybe, I might need some extra help. And if you're at D, then I definitely encourage you to reach out. Reach out to colleagues, to loved ones, to employee assistance programs, mental health care professionals. You don't need to go it alone. And the stigma from someone who's suffered from mental health issues, the stigma today is a lot reduced than what it was many, many years ago. Okay, in the chat box for me again, who remembers what the tagline is for KitKat? You may remember it from an ad or seeing it on the packaging, but can you remember what their slogan is? Pop that in the chat box for me. Have a break. Yes, great one, Nikki. That's exactly right. Yes, Stephen. Have a break, have a KitKat. That's exactly right. Have a break, have a KitKat. So it's important that we take breaks, and that's where I'm going with this slide. And it's important that we take real breaks. So our mental cognition, our capacity to actually process information, science has it at about around about 40 minutes. Now that's a little bit old research. That's not particularly current. But looking nowadays, I think, you know, if we're bombarded by more social media, I think our attention span's actually decreasing a little bit. So maybe it's actually less than 40 minutes. But what we tend to see when people say they're going to have a break, they're sitting here, they're working on their computer, and then they go on a break and they jump on their phone, they check their emails, they're having a look at what's going on, checking social media, and then they're finished with their phone, finished with their break, and they're straight back onto the computer. That's not a real break. Okay, so we actually need to jump up, we need to stretch our legs, we need to get outside if we can, and we need to make sure that we, you know, give ourselves a real break. We give our brains a bit of an opportunity to relax. I can just see there's some comments in the chat box. Okay, no worries. Cool. Everyone's going okay. So another way to, and this is one of my tips, another way to really benefit your mental health is to get outside regularly. And there are a couple of reasons why we should be doing this. The first is just to breathe in some fresh air. I know for me in Canberra, I live in Canberra, and this year with the bushfires, I really noticed that when we had the massive blanket of smog all across Canberra and the smoke from the fires, that I couldn't get outside for a couple of days. I noticed my own mental health taking a decline. So we need to get outside. We need to, you know, get outside and enjoy that fresh air. Now, the Japanese have a saying for this. It's called Shinrin Yoku, which basically translates into forest bathing. Now, that's the literal translation. But what the science proves is that when you get outside and you're in nature, all of our stress responses start to decrease. So adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, anything that's pumping through our body just starts to relax a little bit. So it's great for our mental health. Now, there's an easy way for you to remember this. It's a little saying I like to use. Blue and green should often be seen. So I'm not talking about, you know, blue on a painting or green, you know, paint your walls green or whatever. Get outside, have a look at the sky, have a look at the trees, have a look at nature, be outside and get out there. So you can get outside for exercise, you can just sit outside and enjoy the sunshine, have a cup of tea, go for a walk, yoga, do your own gym circuits, whatever you want to do. Just make sure you're getting outside regularly. Another tip I have for you, and probably where I'll spend most of my time today, is talking about mindfulness. So when I talk about mindfulness, people often have a misconception that it's a Buddhist thing or it has religious overtones. And that's not the case at all. So mindfulness is about paying attention and it's about awareness. And often we do that through our breath. So there's a couple of different mindfulness techniques I'm going to run through with you today, just to give you an idea of how you might be able to use it. So the first one is meditation. Now, meditation is great, but a lot of people are like, oh, I don't really know. Can I do it? Can I not do it? I know when I first started meditating, I used to think that I had to blank the mind. So I used to sit there and I used to close my eyes and I'd sit in lotus position because I'd seen it on the TV somewhere. I'd sit there and I'd like, why are their thoughts still coming? Why are they still coming? But that's not actually the purpose. The purpose is to focus your attention on point of focus. So for me, breath, might be a mantra, might be listening to someone else's voice. When you focus your attention, you can't do two things in your head at once. So it actually allows your monkey mind, as I like to call it, that little voice in the back of your head that's always chattering away, to just quieten down a little bit so it's not so loud. And that's, you know, has obviously mental health benefits for us. There are lots of apps you can do if you're new to meditation. The one that I recommend the most is Smiling Mind. It's an Australian company, it's a not-for-profit, and it's free, so that's why I recommend it. They do have some paid content, but not all of the content is paid. They do have a section on for children, for kids. There's a section for teenagers, and then there's a section for adults. So you can even do it as a family. Next technique I talk about is the STOP technique. Now, it's an acronym for stop, take a breath, observe, and proceed. And I like to use this technique in lots of different ways, but mainly when I start to notice that either the monkey mind's starting to chatter a bit or I'm starting to feel a little bit stressed. The other way I like to use this is when I get to a red light. Now, I'm the type of person that used to get really annoyed when I hit a red light. I'd be like, why me? Why is this? I got places to be. Why is this happening? Now I use it as a trigger to say, okay, I'm going to sit here for the next 30 seconds, minute, whatever it's going to be. I might as well use that time productively. So I stop, I take a breath, just in the car, just sitting where I am. And as you take a nice deep breath, you can already start to feel it. Like you can start to feel stress leaving the body. You observe what's happening within your body and you observe what's happening outside of the car. Just keep your eyes open, keep an eye on the light, just notice what's happening. And then when the light goes green, proceed. So it's a really short and sharp tip. And this is one of the ones that people always come back to. I did a TEDx talk a TEDx workshop, in 2016. People still grab me today and say, that stop technique, I'm still using it. So I'd encourage you to give that one a try. Walking mindfully is just getting outside. And as you're walking along in nature, just try and not focus on the monkey mind. Try and not do the planning, thinking about what you've got to do when you get home, or worry about things you've had that have gone wrong in the past. Just try and be present. Have a look around, see what you can hear, see what you can smell, see what you can notice around you. Mindful eating. Now, this is a good tip. This one is a weight loss technique, would you believe? Because what happens is when we're eating, we tend to throw food down our mouth very, very fast because we're watching TV or we're talking to someone or we're in a rush. So we eat very, very fast. Now, what happens is that doesn't give the gut receptors a chance to send the message back up to the brain to say, hey, I'm full, stop sending the food down. So when about 2 minutes after you've stopped eating, the message finally gets through to the brain and it's like, oh no, I'm feeling very, very full. And then another 2 minutes down the track, it's like, oh, I've got to get my stretchy pants on because I'm not feeling good at all. So when we slow down and eat a little bit more mindfully, we can actually, notice what's going into our body. And we're giving plenty of time for the gut receptors to send that message back up to the brain to say, okay, I'm full, you can stop now. Music immersion, one of my favorites. Put on my headphones, go into a darkened room or just close my eyes and just listen, really pay attention to the music. Listen to the different instruments, isolate the voice. Just be there and just pay attention to the music. It can be any music you like, classical, rock, rap, doesn't matter, whatever works for you. And my last point is insert any daily activity here. So you can apply this to anything you're doing while you're in the shower, while you're doing dishes, while you're having a meeting. You can be more mindful. It's just about bringing your attention and your focus to a single point and not listening to the monkey mind, as I said there at the bottom. Okay, that's just about it from me. As promised, there's a little bit of a special discount we'd like to offer you for attending this webinar. So this is the book that I wrote for people who don't necessarily consider themselves to be mindfulness people, but who may actually benefit from mindfulness practices and exercise. I do apologize for the name. I'm not actually going to say it out loud. I didn't think when I was writing a book that I'd ever have to say it. And that came very much to the fore when I was giving a big presentation of a room full of 150 people and I'm having to repeat the title. So anyway, it's a really quick read. I like it short, sharp, get to the point, no fluffiness. It's practical, it's pragmatic. I've stripped it back to make sure that it's all about the techniques that are going to work and work in your situation. So I've used these techniques to train special forces, law enforcement, defense force people, and corporate athletes. So basically anyone who works in an office. So the discount code will get you 50% off the retail price of the paperback or the ebook. The paperback retails for $19.95 and the ebook's $9.95. So if you go for the ebook option, it's less than $5. Okay, so I hope you found this useful, and I'm just going to stop the screen share. There we go. And I'm happy to take any questions. If anyone's got any questions or would like to know a little bit more about any of those techniques or another question, I'm happy to answer.
Thanks, Rob. I think that presentation was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing such good advice with us all. I know everyone in our office here at CTO really enjoyed the presentation and got quite a lot from it, some good tips. So thank you very much for your time today. If there are any questions, we're certainly very happy to take those now. If not, we do have a course related to the topic that Rob has spoken about, our stress management course that's available here from CTO. For anyone who feels that it's something relevant for their team at this time in the situation that we're all living and working in, Blake has put that link there now for you to the stress management course, and that's available to be run for your teams if you need it. Again, I'd like to say thank you very much, Rob. That was great, and we will see you all at our next webinar in 2 weeks' time. Have you got anything else you'd like to add, Rob?
No, not at all. I think, look, we went through that pretty quickly. I'm respectful of people's time. So like Rosie said, I'll hang around till the end. And if anyone has any questions, by all means, hit me up. Otherwise, thanks very much for coming today.
Thanks very much, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Rob.